Welcome to the National Council for Hypnotherapy podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of hypnosis, lifting the lid on hypnotherapy, sharing insights and tips for change as we chat. So sit back, relax, and enjoy all the wonderful possibilities of hypnotherapy. My name is Tracey Grist, and I will be your host today. So I'm here today with Bonnie Williamson. Bonnie is in private practice as a hypnotherapist and is developing work around perimenopausal issues like weight loss, anxiety, all the things that come with the change that us women all go through at some point in our lives, inevitably. So you've been doing a lot of work, particularly around weight loss and anxiety. And thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. So, brilliant. How did you take the path of hypnotherapy? What was your draw?
Okay. Could be a long story, but I'll try and make it as brief as I can. Okay, so I started out life, my main career was as a mental health nurse. So I was a mental health nurse for over 25 years. And I did everything I wanted to do in mental health. And I suppose you can see that I already had an interest in the mind and sort of what makes us do the things we do and how we can use our thinking and how we feel and improve our lives. But I was always interested in kind of like the wellness end rather than the mental illness. I was always kind of pitching that in. So I always had a plan that at some point or other I was going to take early retirement and I was going to do some kind of therapy in private practice. Anyway, so life carried on and like I said, I did everything I wanted to do in mental health. But what I kind of sort of on reflection, I can see that I don't quite know when this started to happen. Maybe it was my late 30s, 40s, definitely my late 40s, early 50s, the perimenopause. Yeah. I started to very gradually lose my mojo, and it happened really, really slowly. Okay. And then I would say it kicked in a bit more, late 40s, early 50s. And, well, I battled through it as you do. Always, I'm a nurse, we're
resilient and strong.
I carry on, and I'm resilient. So I did carry on. And then eventually I changed jobs. Got a job out of mental health. I thought, well, maybe I just need something else. I was always looking for something else to change things up a bit. But yeah, then it really kicked in, right? And so I mean, most people think menopause. They think hot flashes. Well, that's what I thought. I knew nothing, right? I didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand where this anxiety was coming from. And the brain fog. I mean, it was like I had cotton wool in my head. And, I was just absolutely at my wit's end with it. And then, getting there to the end of the story. This is the job. It's slightly not. I had this person in my life who was quite toxic to me, and this person was quite good at amplifying all the things that I was anxious about. So I had anxiety, and I was stressed, and so they made me feel more anxious because they tended to amplify the anxiety. They tended to, increase my feelings of lack of confidence, which was I already had.
Okay.
And this was gaslighting. I didn't know what that was. Just knew I didn't really feel good around this person. And what that told me is that you can actually change how people feel by planting little seeds in their mind. Does this make sense? And you can use the way you say things again to sort of encourage people to think different ways. And again, this is quite subtle. It was going over a period of years. So it wasn't like, therapy. So it was going over a period of years. So then I kind of realized that actually, if you can do that in a negative way, you can really do it in a positive way. Yeah? Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Putting positive seeds in people's minds and putting things in such a way that you can encourage them to feel better, more positive, more confident. So that was already going in my mind. Then it gets to the bit where I'm retiring, right? And I'm thinking, right, what do I do? I want to do something that I use the same skills, but I want it to be so different because I want to increase my confidence. I want to prove to myself that I haven't got dementia because I was worried I had dementia.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I need to learn something new. I need to prove to myself that I can do that. Hypnosis popped in my mind. By complete coincidence, my daughter was going out with somebody whose mother was a solution-focused hypnotherapist. And said, why don't you talk with my boyfriend's mum? So I did. And she was so lovely. She was so positive. She was so positive about solution-focused hypnotherapy. And she made me feel like, yeah, you're going to really like this. You could do this. And so I decided to investigate it and got in touch with my local trainer, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And so when you were at your lowest and feeling like that lack of resilience, both physically and emotionally, could you see out, or were you stuck in it with all the difficulties around you? How did you manage to find your way out?
Yeah. Well, I was really stuck in it. Yes. And everybody said, oh, you must go to counselling. And so I did. And I talked about it. I talked about it every week. And I talked about this person and how they were making me feel. And it was like, yes, I could talk about it till I'm blue in the face, but until I can work out something different to do that I can do differently about it, this isn't going to resolve. So in the end, I was actually able to extricate myself from the situation and not have contact with this person anymore. When they weren't in my world, then it was good. You know, I realized it was them.
Yeah.
I wasn't anxious about everything. It was just the things that they made me feel anxious about. So, you know, but obviously I lost confidence generally, you know, because you do it, because what things tend to invade different parts of your life, don't they? You know, if it's good in one part, you can transfer it to the next. If it's bad in one part, it's sort of tends to affect the way you perceive things.
But also, I think as women at the age, we've got so many things going on with our children. We've got so many things going on in life. It's really easy to take responsibility for everything and go, oh, it's all my fault. Like I'm doing because I don't feel great anyway. And so pick that on. So
and I was really a person who would do that. Yes. You know, it was all going to be, and I'd always be looking at what was I doing wrong in the relationship, you know, and that person was never taking any responsibility in anything. It was always my fault, you see. So I like, okay, you know.
Yeah. So hard. So when you discovered how is solution focused hypnotherapy different to normal hypnotherapy or normal therapy even?
Yeah. Well, it's because we are focused on the solution. Well, it says on the tin. So we're always sort of future focused. So we're looking at what is it you want instead of the problem. Yeah. So going along with my traditional therapy, I talked about the problem a lot. And I kind of knew that I wanted to get to a solution, but I couldn't, and I didn't know how to get the therapist to get me to a solution. But what I would have liked, I suppose, would have been somebody to ask me, get my strengths, make me more aware of what my strengths were. So how have you coped in similar situations? Because obviously there must have been similar situations in my life where I felt lacking in confidence. You know, so what was different in those times? What was I doing in those times that helped me to get through? So it's about identifying people's strengths, what they do well, what's working well, so they can do more of it. So you're wanting people to work to see what their future might be like without the problem. Yeah. And that's quite difficult when you're feeling stuck, isn't it? Because when I was stuck, it was like there was this big boulder in the way that I couldn't move out. And I couldn't quite visualize what it would be like without it. And once you start to visualize what it might be like without the problem, then you start to see the solutions a bit clearer. It's a little bit easier to identify what So, what would be happening if you were feeling a bit better? What would it look like? What would you be doing? What would people notice about you? So it's all about getting people to that future place and sort of mapping it out in tiny little steps. Because when you first got the problem, you're at the bottom of the mountain, so to speak, and you can only look up to this huge mountain in front of you and you can't see the steps. So what I help people to do is to see those little steps and identify what they are. And they can be really small because it's really doable, but obviously it's going to be a stretch. Otherwise you'd be doing it, wouldn't you? And so that might be something simple, like, well, it sounds simple, but maybe it isn't. But, like going to bed early, earlier than you're going.
Yeah.
Because you've got to get into that routine. But what difference does it make? Well, often people will identify that if I got to bed a little bit earlier, I'd feel a bit better in the morning. And if I felt a little bit better in the morning, I'd get out of bed earlier. And, what would happen next? Well, I might be looking forward to the day a little bit more. That's what I really want to happen. I want to be looking forward to the day. Well, what would happen if you were looking forward to the day? Well, I'd be smiling at my husband. Oh, what would he notice about that? Well, he'd notice that I'm moving a bit quicker because I'm feeling better, aren't I? And well, what would happen next? Well, we might go and have breakfast together. So you've kind of gone from like feeling miserable in the morning to having breakfast with your husband, which might be something you wanted to do because you weren't doing that because you didn't look at anybody because you were feeling miserable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's those micro, oh, excuse me. It's those micro changes, isn't it? Where that can shift so many things just easily. Yeah,
that's right. Because we're always looking for these big changes, and it's not, because the little changes lead to something else. Because it's not just about how you are as a person. It's like, so the person that is with you will notice how you are presenting in some way. There's going to be something different, and that might change how they react. And then who knows what might happen, and sometimes it's about having a conversation. Often people will talk about, I need to talk to my boss about blah, blah. Yeah. And go and talk to the boss. And then they feel so much better the next week. It might not change a huge lot of thing, but it might change something. You decided, right, well, I'm going to look for another job now. Usually like, well, I tried and they didn't work and I've got to go. I should have been really understanding. I wasn't expecting that, because you never know what's going to happen if you do something different, do you?
No, exactly. And I think seeing to help that confidence, you do something different that you wouldn't ordinarily do, can just in itself be a godsend, really, just to have that somebody on your side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think you also get to hear yourself talk, you know what I mean? And when you talk to somebody else, it comes out a bit differently. And sometimes people talk about having a bit of accountability, even though I'm not going to hold them accountable, because I'm not, even though at the end of each session, I've got them to identify a small little action they're going to take. I won't check them up because I'm solution focused, future focused. I don't talk about last week or next week. But sometimes people, they do tell me if they've done the thing, or sometimes they do something else instead, and that's fine because that might be a better idea. They've changed their mind. And then sometimes they come back a few weeks later and they'll say, oh, I didn't do that thing, but actually maybe it is time to do that thing, And they're telling me because they want me to sort of help them because they just feel I'm helping them to be accountable. And that's...
Yeah, brilliant. So you're shifting into working with the perimenopause and women going through it. What was that, because of your experience? Yeah. I think because I'm really interested in the fact that I didn't know anything about it, and I was a nurse, and I trained as a general nurse a long time before I was a mental health. But I didn't know anything about it at all. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And all these symptoms that I had, I realised they were symptoms of the perimenopause. Like I had palpitations, and I never knew until I looked it up. Oh, that's why I had those.
And yeah, and I think, sometimes it's when you've got that insight into something, it's really helpful. I mean, I don't talk much about my experiences because they're not there to hear about me, are they? So, but sometimes it's good to know that that person does have some experience of how you felt, and yeah, I know all sorts of different symptoms that I have, but I mean, lots of my clients have different symptoms. Like, yeah, I never worried about hot flushes. They weren't an issue for me, but I know they're a huge issue for some people.
And it's tricky, isn't it? Going through it myself, I feel that I didn't know that I was perimenopausal. I just thought I was depressed. I thought, and I rationalized it by, we're in COVID, and although I'm working, I work with hardcore issues, and maybe that's all got on top of me. And I was thinking I was resilient, and so all the time I was thinking, because I was still having periods. So in my mind, like when you go through the menopause, you don't have periods. And I just thought because I was having periods that I wasn't perimenopausal, because I was expecting not to be bleeding. I was expecting to have hot flashes, and I wasn't having hot flashes. And so I was just overwhelmed, tired beyond.
Yes, I remember.
Miserable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was only the fact that I did have mental health training that really helped me also, because I knew what real symptoms of depression was. I knew my mood was down, but it wasn't depression. It was all about the situation I was in as well. And I knew I had the anxiety though. The anxiety was bad, but I think it would have been even worse if I didn't understand it. I think understanding something is a lot. Helps you, sort of knowledge is power. Oh, okay, that's why that's happening. This is why I'm doing this. It's a normal thing, as in it's something that happens sometimes,
Yeah. And I think, at our age group, we've got so much going on anyway. And again,
it does hit at the time when you're the most busy, because it's sort of like you've probably got a lot going on in your career, probably got teenage children.
Oh, yeah.
Getting older and more demanding. I mean, it's all just a perfect storm, really, isn't it? And you probably, well, I certainly wasn't. I just didn't even think about it. I just thought, oh, well, that's just the thing you go through, and it's hot flushes and it's all done. But of course, now I realise, even when I reflect back on my mum, I was thinking, actually, you know what? It was quite a tough time, and I didn't click. That was also a thing for her. I saw the hot flushes. But the rest of it, I didn't click at all. There was like, I think, oh yeah, there's a lot going on for her at that time too.
Yeah, and it's tricky because there isn't enough general knowledge about it. And I certainly know with clients who go to the doctors and they're almost saying to the doctors, these are my symptoms of perimenopause, and the doctor's going, no, we need to prescribe you antidepressants.
Yes.
That knowledge isn't out there. It's getting there, thankfully.
Yeah, and I think I was quite lucky that I had a really good GP who could see that I wasn't really depressed, and I don't think antidepressants would be new. But he didn't mention menopause.
Yeah. It's I don't know.
That one.
Yeah, and I think the more we speak about it and just how early it happens and all of that information, that people can go, oh, maybe I need to rethink symptoms I've got. There's like dozens and dozens of symptoms, and we can just have 4, we can have all of them. Yeah.
It's something I heard the other day that I thought that was a symptom. What was it? Oh, it was another symptom that I had, and I'm thinking, oh, yes, I had that. I didn't realise it was part of it. I don't think it was. It'll come back to me.
But it's things like that. I run out of words. I'm so vocal, and I'll talk to anyone, and I'll start a sentence off, and I'll think, where are the rest of my words?
Oh yeah,
God.
Yeah, and I'm brain fog. I mean, I'm better than I was now, but know. I don't know if it's just age now. I now remember my brain does work reasonably well, but memory's not great, but it's good enough.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just, I don't know. It's so, it can be so disabling that because it's your hormones, you don't know that you're in it either. It's a little bit like, when we've got PMT and that one day before your period, like you might be like a crazy woman. I am a crazy woman who can't park either. I have that. But because I'm in it, I don't recognize that I'm in it until people are going, maybe turn it down a bit, and maybe don't drive today.
No.
So I don't know.
I remember.
Oh, come on.
Hang on, just wait for it. Over shoulder. That was it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's all to do with the hormones and how hormones affects everywhere. So yes, even in your bones. I had that twice in that period of time. The first time was really bad.
Yeah, and that's funny.
Is that not funny? Sorry, that's me. It's my nerves.
But that's, I literally was in the osteopath yesterday with my shoulder.
I always laugh, it's not funny.
I think that's part of our profession.
Yeah, I don't know, always done it.
So, but you also work with weight loss around perimenopause as well.
Oh, that's another thing. Always always kind of thought, oh, it's really hard to sort of feel happy about the weight and then control it. And again, around the menopause time, it sort of went quite a bit, really. So, yes, and I think it was always an area of interest for me to sort of think that if I can help people to be able to do that. I remember a long, long time ago meeting a lady who had a long history of depression. And she mentioned about her weight. That was all kind of tied up with it. And then I realized how, all things to do with her childhood were all sort of tied up with her relationship with food. So, and I think food was a bit of an issue. There probably wasn't quite enough of it when she was young, or it was kind of lots of conditions around it and that kind of thing. So it sort of, made me think quite a lot about that. And I was thinking that, yes, I would like to be able to help people with that. And of course, now I can sort of do things that I'm interested in now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not just interested in...
No.
things as well, but that's kind of...
I suppose I'm just curious, really. So what would you consider a healthy relationship with food looking like? What would be the solution towards that?
Well, I think, often people use food as a way to cope with things, and perhaps they're not really aware of it, because they're wanting something. Food is there to replace something sometimes. So it's, like we eat when we're bored, we eat when we're angry, even we eat when we're happy, we eat when we're lonely. And it's being able to recognize what do we actually need, so it's like, why am I going to the fridge at 11 o'clock at night when I've already had dinner, realizing, oh, actually, am I hungry? Do I really need this? And sometimes it's that realizing that, that it's like, because you're not going to eat that piece of cake now, it doesn't mean that you're never going to eat a piece of cake in your life. So you do not need to eat that piece of cake. But sometimes there's that sort of famine mentality in our brain. It's like, because we are genetically designed really to eat food when we see it, because we haven't really had an upgrade since, cavewoman times. So, we something in our brain is going, oh, cake, I've got to eat it. But you haven't, because we live in a time when food is just all around us.
Yeah.
It's just having that relationship with food, that it's there as nourishment. And we do enjoy it. Also we're designed to enjoy that, because nature wants us to enjoy food because we need it. So we need that dopamine boost that we get when we eat. Mm-hmm. And of course, food can be nice things like sharing it with friends. And it can be interesting, different recipes and all that sort of thing. So, it's about enjoying it, but not feeling that it's in control of you, that you have no control over what you eat.
Yeah.
And making sure you eat nourishing food that's healthy. I'm sure you know, we as a society, we do eat a lot of processed food, don't we? Which isn't very healthy. It just sort of drives our weight gain, really. So we have lots of I would say dead calories, cat things that we eat. They don't like, they're nice, but they're not very nourishing, really.
Yeah.
Another bowl of ice cream, but it's got to be in balance, doesn't it? We have to feel like, yes, occasionally. So it should be like 80-20. 80 of the time we're eating nourishing food, and 20 is sort of other things that I quite like to enjoy.
It's finding the balance, isn't it?
Yeah. I always think life's about balance. So definitely. Because nothing's a problem till it's a problem, really. We all need food for emotional reasons, but it's only when it becomes a problem that it's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. True enough. So what would a session look like? So how do you work with clients? Is a session an hour? What happens?
So each session is sort of roughly an hour. So because we are very much wanting people to be in the part of our brain we kind of talk about as our intellectual part of our brain, so the part of the brain where we're much more positive, we're seeing things more logically, and we're coming up with the answers based on a proper assessment of the situation. So I want to keep people in that part of their brain. So when they come along, they probably don't even notice this bit. I'm quite sort of talk about something inconsequential. So like there's usually if it's in a face-to-face client, there's a little walk through the garden, and I'll talk about the molehills of the beard and man's going to fix them and husband's going to mow the grass. All inconsequential language, because I don't want them to sort of be thinking about anything stressy.
Yeah.
It comes into my conversation quite a lot. I'm very British. And then each session, everybody comes and tells me what's gone well during the week, what's been good. So, things that gave them pleasure and things that they enjoyed, maybe improvements. What have they noticed that's gone well? Sometimes they're like, maybe the first session they haven't noticed anything, but then they think, might come up with like, well, I listened to your download. I was really surprised how actually it was quite good. And it works. So I slept well. Anyway, so there's usually something that comes up that's good, even though they weren't expecting it. So that's all about keeping them in. You can tell I'm getting excited, can't you?
It's good. It's good.
So they start to talk about, kind of what's been good. So that's going to keep them in their intellectual mind, because you talk about a problem. That's when you go into your primitive mind. And you can't solve your problems when you're like, sort of, yes, you're looking for the next problem, aren't you? Okay. So then also, the next part of the session is, when we come to a little bit of stuff on the brain, because, I always do the brain bit of the first session as well. So talk a lot about the brain and explain what's happening in their brain in relation to the problem they're having. So just click in a little bit about each session, because even though I've told them, they might need to know a bit more, they might need to remember it. It's all about trying to help them to answer the next bit of the question we're in. Because like I said, knowledge is power. And then the next part of the session, I might get them to scale how they're feeling. So how happy are they? And happiness is maybe, it's usually how happy is a good thing, a good way of balancing it, Or I might ask them to scale something specific, but happiness comes up quite a lot. So 10 is top of the scale and 0 is the other, and like, I'll say where they are, because I want to scale them. And, what else? So the next part is like the solution focused part of the session. So that is, as a solution focused therapist, if you know anything about solution focused therapy, it's the miracle question. So the miracle question is kind of getting people to visualize the next, basically what is the problem going to be when the problem's gone? What's life going to be like?
Oh, okay.
So the solution focused question, the new question is something like, it could be, okay, so I'm going to ask you a really unusual question. That problem, the one we just talked about. Well, just imagine that there's a miracle that just happened, and you've gone home tonight and you've done all the normal things that you do, and You go to bed and you go to sleep and you wake up tomorrow morning. And while you're asleep, a miracle happens. But you don't know the miracle's happened because you're asleep. And the miracle is that problem, the thing you just talked about, that's just gone, right? What would be the first thing that would tell you that that problem has gone away? Most people find that a bit tricky, you know, on the first session because they're still at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah.
So they've got to think about, oh gosh, what would it mean? So it might be something that's usually something that they haven't got anymore. Like, well, that feeling of pressure, it will have gone. And so it might be, okay, so the pressure's gone. What would be there instead? And again, they've got to think about that. Wow. I'm now feeling a little bit more positive. Oh, so the pressure's gone. You're feeling a bit more positive. What would happen next? I feel more like getting out of bed, and I'd spring out of bed. Sometimes they think, yeah. They think, why am I doing that? They don't feel that's quite possible yet, but they'll say it because, of course, they're starting to think about it now. Yeah, I'll get out of bed. I'll spring out of bed. What will happen next? I'm going with this. Oh, well, yeah, what will happen next? Well, I actually feel like having a shower, that won't be such a bother, because sometimes people might find a shower difficult because they're really depressed. But what would happen if what would happen next? How would life be different if you got a shower? Well, I'd feel much brighter. And if you were being much brighter, what would you be doing next? I'd go for a walk. So, it carries on until you're sort of ending up, you go as far as you kind of need to go, and then you're kind of ending up like, okay, so what might you see yourself doing to get yourself one step closer to that wonderful goal of, and whatever it is you might be saying that they've got to. So it might be that I'm going to write a chapter of my book or something. I am going to go for a walk tomorrow. So what's the step? So it's like identifying exactly what that step is. What do they actually need to do? Because we need to tell our brains exactly what we need to do in order to make it happen. So I'm going for a walk. So what needs to happen? Well, I need to get my clothes out the night before or something like that. What it is that they need to do? Okay, so what time are you going to put your clothes out? Because you need to tell your brain exactly what you need to do. Oh, okay, what time will I do it? Well, I'll put that way. Then I'll go to bed at 10:30 and I'll put the clothes out. Great. So they've got their action, right? You see your brain. 30, you're going to go to bed. I haven't put your clothes out. Boom. Right, lovely. Well done. We're going to do the trance part of the session. So you thought I was never going to get to that, but did you? So then we get to the trance, nice relaxing trance, and we've got to see over there is my relaxing couch. So then they can push the button back and lie back a bit if they want, blanket on to keep nice and warm, and just let my words just wash over them. Just go off into a nice little, I've closed my eyes just thinking about it now. A nice little relaxed world where you're just not having to worry about anything. And while you're doing that, your brain is actually, your subconscious mind is just working through what we just talked about. Next. Because your brain is actually quite busy while you're in a trance,
Yeah.
Plans are being made. And then you open your eyes at the end and you feel so much better than when you came in.
Lovely. It sounds like poetry. Beautiful thing.
It really is.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to come and see you, do you work in person as well as online on your comfortable couch?
I do, yes.
Where are you based?
I'm based just outside Canterbury in the village called So,
yeah. Lovely part of the world. Yeah. So if you could give somebody a top tip, if they're struggling with anxiety or worrying or something, what would a top tip look like?
Okay. Well, I think I'm thinking my top tips is kind of more about thinking about therapy. So I keep an open mind about hypnotherapy because it's not really that mysterious. I mean, I've told you about what a session looks like. And so, yeah, it's about kind of tapping into that potential that you've got. But keep up an open mind about potentials. When you're thinking about, so I want to get rid of this problem, whatever it is. So you kind of want to set quite clear goals about what it is you want to achieve. So, because you might be thinking, I want to feel less anxious, but you need to be clear about, well, what does less anxious actually look like? So how would you know that you were less anxious? What would you be doing differently? Some people are pretty good at doing that, actually, once they come and see you, and they do that really quickly, actually. I'd say trust the process, because if you found the right therapist for you, it's about that collaborative process between you. But because when it works, it really works. You like the person. It's easy to do the rapport. You get on, you trust them. If you trust them, you make good progress. Then you feel happy about your progress, and then you make even more progress. But at the same time, you've got to be quite patient. Things do take time, because the moment you're at the bottom of the mountain and you've got to get up to the top of the mountain. I'd say practice relaxation techniques. So, I mean, obviously, as I've said, or did I say? And yes, I did talk about the relaxation downloads that I give people.
Okay, yeah. And so you can put your website, and we'll put it on the link below so people can connect to it. Yeah.
So I've got a relaxation download. And so that's the thing I ask people to do. Definitely listen for that, because it's got the difference. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people want to do other things as well. They might want to do meditation or do some kind of breathing technique, just things that help them to relax. It might be a hobby, identifying those things that help you to relax. And of course, when you're doing something nice and relaxing, you sometimes get into a nice little trance, but you just didn't know that. Maybe you like painting and you're just painting away and you're being nice and relaxed, and that's good. Right? We need that for our health. What else would I say? Well, if you're having therapy, make sure that you attend it consistently, because you need to get a bit of a run at it, really. Because if you are trying to change something, you're trying to change the way you think, you need to sort of get in the zone. Otherwise, if you leave it different weeks, you know what I mean, you sort of get out of the way of doing things.
Well, and I think it's being with the right therapist. If you feel that you're not with the right therapist, find someone that you connect with. I think it's finding the right therapist is as important as finding the right partner.
Yeah, that's right. So it is fine. I'm not right for everyone. Why? You've got to find the right person for you. And sometimes it's different people at different times as well. It's when it's that wonderful combination of right person, right time. That's cool. And if it's not, it's not. It's fine. You'll find the right person for you.
Exactly. Brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much. I'm going to wrap it up there. We'll put your links in the bio, so if people want to find you, they can. Thank you ever so much for sparing the time to talk. It's been lovely.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.